Everybody, welcome to Political Vigilante. I'm joined by a huge Medicare for All proponent, also a member of the LA Chargers of the NFL, and has a new podcast called The Takeover, Justin Jackson. And you were just talking about, and I think that's a great point, especially because I played some college athletics. I played lacrosse in college. When it's such a you broke it down into such a great point of, like, especially starting at the collegiate level. High school, I don't know, everyone can kind of be from the same area and maybe they all have the same mentality. That can happen. But when you start getting to the collegiate level and beyond, you do have this locker room of all these. I mean, I played lacrosse and there was guys all from the East Coast, guys from Canada, guys from the West. I mean, just all different points of view. And it was really interesting to see where they were coming from. And I went to very kind of a unique high school, Evanston, a suburb of Chicago. It's 40% black, my high school. It was one of the first places after the end of the Civil War where people from the South, particularly freed slaves, could come and own property. So it's a very unique environment. And I remember when I went to college, I was like, I saw the, like, how, and not that Evanston is some utopia, it's not, but it's a unique situation, and it was a very unique environment to grow up in. And I played football there and lacrosse, and I got to college at the University of Arizona, and I saw kind of how more isolated the majority of the country is. Like, one of the most, I'll never forget this experience. So I grew up, I'm a little older, obviously, and so we were listening to rap and hip hop when I was playing ball in the 80s, right? I graduated in 1987. I'm 51 years old. And so that's the music I grew up dancing to. I mean, that's before it was sort of mainstream. That's what the guys in the locker room, that's what we played at the parties. And I remember I was in college, and my freshman year, and some of the guys I'd met in the dorm had come from, like, all white schools. And their view of people that of black or anybody was just, it was off. And we were in this big apartment complex. And it's just one of these college apartment complexes where, like, every fifth unit, someone was having a party, right? And everyone's just like hanging out. Everyone's in college. And I heard this, like, house music come out of this apartment. I was like, oh, let's go there. Let's go dance to that. And it was mostly black people. And my white friends that I had met in college were like, we're not going in there. I was like, I was like, what's wrong?
That fear, of the unknown. They just don't,
And I was like, wow. And it was really, that was the first time I had sort of, I grew up in Wisconsin and moved to Evanston when I was like 11 or 12. So I went from this, like, white Madison, which is like a liberal college town, but very white liberal, to then Evanston, which is a whole different vibe. And then the city of Chicago, which was a whole other thing. Right. 80s, and then college in Arizona was this very
you're in a lot of different mixtures of just ideologies. But, like, the thing about it is you learn how to, like, really, like, the way I explain it is, like, with football, I mean, I was with those guys every single day, whether we were at class and working out, locker room.
Where'd you go to college
together? I went to Northwestern, so in Evanston.
Oh, dude.
So right there, when you're talking about it,
Awesome. That's right on. Oh my God. I didn't know. I did not know that.
Right around the corner. But you get to know these guys first, and then they become, just your best friends, your brothers, whatever. So then when you actually start to kind of break down and get into, like, anything political or, societal, stuff like that, you actually have those bigger kind of conversations. You can actually, like, you're not just going to sit there and call your best friend, a racist because they're from Texas and they're conservative, you know what I mean? And they grew, because just how you grew up in this liberal, like myself, and I know a lot of other people, you grew up in this liberal family. Obama was the best, Clinton was the best, all these things, right? They grew up on the other side thinking Bush was the best and Reagan, right? So it's like, I think Trump kind of fundamentally broke the country, because at that point it's like, it's not just like, oh, you grew up conservative and, you grew up with that ideology and you grew up with liberal. Now it's like, oh, you're a Trumper. Now you're, irredeemable, beyond the pale. And then that way, as soon as you come into a conversation and that's what you're and that's what you start with, you're not going to get anywhere with that conversation. It's just going to be name calling. I hate you. You hate me. Blah, blah, blah. Nothing's going to be learned, you know?
Where did you go to high school?
So I'm from the suburbs of Chicago. So I went to Glenbard North, which is right outside of, kind of close to Schaumburg. Do you know the area?
Yeah, dude. Like I said, I went to high school in Evanston. I know.
Okay.
And we played. We were in the CSL North was our division.
Okay.
So we never played. I think we played. We never played Glenbard, but we played.
No, probably not.
No.
Probably not. You might. I mean, there's 4 different ones. I went to North. There's East, West, and South. West is in like Glen Ellen. Glenbard East is in like Lombard area, and I can't remember where Glenbard South is, but
sort of the north. So those are all sort of west and northwest suburbs.
Yeah, northwest suburbs. Yeah, but I played. I think I played a tournament maybe at Evanston, or I've definitely been to the high school a few times. Mm-hmm. So that's why when you said that, I was like, wow, that's crazy.
I mean, my nephew, I just talked to him. He's playing. He's in his senior year at Evanston Township High School. He played football and basketball his freshman sophomore year, and then he's just been focusing on baseball. But yeah, my brother and his oldest daughter went to high school there. She graduated, and so like that town is a big part of my family, and so over the summer when all of the George Floyd protests had started, my graduating class put together a weekly Zoom thing to talk about race.
Wow.
And it was pretty powerful.
Awesome. That's so powerful. And the fact that people, even showed up to talk about it, that's powerful in and of itself, It
was great. I mean, we talked about, white fragility. We talked about like some historical stuff. I didn't know about the transference of wealth, intergenerational wealth, and how it really backed up the case for ADOS in terms of like since slavery, there hasn't been this transfer of wealth by and large in the Black community because there wasn't any to begin with. Right. Whereas like I look at my ancestors came over here from Ireland, and then they worked hard and were allowed to flourish in a system that allowed that to happen. And these conversations became even more prominent because Jacob Blake, his dad and uncle, went to Evanston, and I played football with Justin, his uncle. Yeah,
I did not know that.
That was that was tough. And one of my teammates, said, David Stamp said, this is getting closer and closer to home. And each bullet is literally what he said, because it was. And I haven't, talked to Justin since then. I haven't talked to the guy in years, but I know some people that are still in touch with him. And that really brought it home for me, because I'm like, well, my nephew is from Evanston too, and we went to the same schools, but my nephew is more than likely not going to get hassled or shot by the police because he's white.
Right.
And it was really, and you talk about the teammate thing, even though I haven't played ball in years, but I was like, how can I look they're your brothers in arms, whether it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. I'm like, how can I look Justin in the eye or some of my other Black teammates in the eye if I don't stand up and say something about this? Like, because they're my teammates.
Exactly.
Like, we went through it together.
Yeah, so, and when you do that, it's just like you have a different type of bond and connection, because it really is like when you play sports, and you go through, people just see like the games and stuff, but a lot of times, especially when it came to like high school and college, it's like the things you remember the most, those times where you're grinding the most. It's like, oh, you're just so tired, you're doing conditioning, and you don't think you're gonna make it. Like, you just don't think you're gonna make it, but those people right next to you are the ones helping you, pulling you up. That's why it's really easier to work out in a group than by yourself. You have that pull, and so when you get off the field, just like you were saying, even if you're white and they're Black, you went through the same shit. You eat together, live in the same house, all these things. So that's why I wish that sports figures kind of understood politics at a deeper level. because I think sports do speak, to so many people, because whether you're, white, black, whatever, sports are so big in the United States. So you go to that sport game, it doesn't matter. You're both fans of the same team, right? You're a team working towards the same goal. The players feel that too, right? And the players are idolized and put on this pedestal. The problem is that the players, by and large, the ones who mean well, have just been co-opted by the Democratic Party. And so to them, it's like they're doing the right thing by their communities. But it's, they've been propagandized into believing that. Like, you can't tell me voting for Joe Biden or pushing for Joe Biden is doing the right thing for your community. And but that's why Trump was the biggest gift to them, because you have this boogeyman, right, who you can say, well, he's openly racist. He openly says this stuff. He openly calls black countries shithole, right? He openly does this stuff. And so it's just easy for, the liberal brain to trigger, okay, well, Joe Biden doesn't do that. He doesn't say any of those things. So he must be, and he's got Kamala Harris as a VP. So, he's got to be good for our community, the black community. She's getting off the plane wearing Timbs, like just like us type thing, And so that's what's so insidious about it. So I'm hoping that, we just have to find a way, because if we can get, those sports figures, on the right side, pushing for the right things. And we almost had it with the strikes, right? And then Obama swept in, and that's why Obama will always be, it just goes on and on.
Real quick, I want to say, before we get into the strike Obama thing, I really want to talk about that. One of the things too you learn playing sports is you got to take shit. Like, and I can only imagine what it's like on the professional level. But I remember, just in high school being booed on the road. I remember we lost, and my geography teacher on Monday was like, "Hey, Elwood, what happened? What happened Saturday? I was captain of the team. Why'd you guys?" He's calling me out in front of the whole class, and I was 17. He's like, "What the hell happened?" And so you got to hear that. But anyway, all right.
No, that actually, it's funny you bring that up, because I feel like when the whole AOC and force the vote and all that stuff was going on, I'm like, wait, why is it okay for us as athletes? We're just people too. We're entertainers. It's a job. Why is it that we get to get cussed at, yelled at, death threats, all type of shit? Like, I'm talking all type of stuff, but it's okay when it comes to us. But, if you're an actual politician who actually has power to change lives, I don't have the power in my hands to do that, at a moment's notice, or with, canceling student debt with a pen like Joe Biden can do. I don't have the power to do any of that. But when it's talking to them and people are getting angry because people are dying, then it's violence, or it's, you're out of line, or you shouldn't, it's just crazy, though, like the arbitrary standards we set in this country.
Let's talk about that force the vote thing. Let's really I'm so glad you brought that up, because I watched this force the vote thing happen. Jimmy had a great idea, and I've known Jimmy for years. We started doing stand up in Chicago years ago. And his first video he said, I'll forgive you if you said bad stuff about me in the past, and you forgive me. Let's just get this done. And then that
was powerful in the moment, too, because at that point, Cenk was on board, Sam Cedar was on board. I was like, wow, like this is gonna happen, which is really why I jumped. I lend my voice to it, because I was like, this is a real opportunity. We haven't done shit since Bernie lost. Like, we can actually come together. They're finally they have some institutional power. They have a coalition. We can start getting some real advances here, right? And that's why, I was so enthused by it as well. I'm sure, like you and like so many other people. And then obviously, what happened from there?
And that was the thing that was so nuts. And then when she said, and then I don't know who was Anna Kasparian or some other person like that was like, Jimmy said, when Jimmy said, fuck AOC, that's an act of violence. I went, because you were in this and I played sports too. I was like, Are you kidding me? You're in Congress. Like, I've heard the home team. I grew up a Cub fan in the 80s before they were good. It was just like, boo. I played Lee Elia's speech from 1984 when he goes, it was back when there was no lights at Wrigley. And he's like, 85% of the people are working. The other 15% come down here and boo my team. It's a playground for the cocksuckers. This is how he spoke. He was booed. I mean, I can only imagine. And I relate I'm like, if I got yelled at as a high school football player, I can't imagine. And I've been a sports fan my whole life. So I've seen home teams boo, show up with signs, fire this bum, sports radio lights up, get rid of this guy. He's just the worst. And then, hey, don't be mean to AOC. Because let me tell you something, an NFL coach can't give me health care. You know, AOC could. She has 12 million Twitter followers. And the fact that and people are like, don't be mean or she's our ally. Well, look, man, I didn't vote for her. I'm not in her district, but I donated to her. I used my platform. I don't have a big platform. To help Jimmy really help get her elected. We all pushed her. I mean, you can go back through my catalog. I have dozens of videos where I'm like, she's awesome. She's the future. She's the one, we
were all saying it,
and then it's too mean. It's too mean. Like, this is where I'm like, this is where I love sports, because it's like, get the fuck off the field. Like,
if you can't handle it, get out. Like, it's your job.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about that on the NFL level. Tell us about the pressure on the NFL level. If you screw up, what happens?
Oh man, it's massive. Like, I've seen people. My rookie year, this is what I knew was real. My rookie year, we had already gone through, training camp, which is really when 30, 40 guys just like, nope, you're not good enough. See ya.
And it's not like
what it is.
It's no like, hey, sorry. It's like,
sorry to hurt your feelings. It's like, thank you, appreciate it. Turn your iPad in. You're gone. Like that's what it is. But my rookie year, this guy, he was one of our return men, like on special teams, and he literally did something like the coach was already kind of pissed at him a little bit, just because he couldn't know the playbook or whatever, something like that. But he just one day had a bad practice. The next day, and this is another thing, when you're in those meetings and you fuck up, they're calling you out in front of everybody. So what are you doing? They highlight you, rewind it, fast forward a million times. It's about performance. And he didn't perform, and I kid you not, the next day, this was after a practice, like not even during a game, after a practice, he was gone. He was gone. I mean, that's what it is. Like, and it's weird that we're okay with that. We're okay with having performance-based results for athletes. And we understand outcomes as a product of that. But when it comes to politicians, they can be there for 30 fucking years, never get anything done, and then still have people defend them just because there's someone ostensibly worse on the other side. But when these people are in power, they didn't help you either. The people that you're defending. So when is it going to be? And this is where it is for me with, people can debate, their intentions all they want as far as the squad and progressives. To me, that is almost moot, because at the end, it's about results, right? So in 2-3 months or in 2-3 years, are people going to have an increased wage or not? Yes or no? Now, whether you want to say it's Nancy Pelosi's fault or this person's fault or that person's fault, or whether they felt good about it, they wanted it so bad. Well, people aren't going to have it, period. And so are you, and the thing about that is there's something you could have done. You could have said no to the bill if it didn't have it in it. You could have done that. That was an option. That was a choice. You didn't choose that option. So I don't really care what your intentions are. The results are that we're not getting a $15 minimum wage. We didn't get an expanse in Medicare. Instead, they are going to fund COBRA, which is twice as expensive. There's corporate loopholes for that PPP money where corporate lobbying groups can get some of that. I mean, and then you're selling me this bill like it's the Bernie is the biggest piece of progressive legislation. And what? Like, where? Show me where. You're an essential worker. You worked the whole pandemic. You didn't get unemployment. You were working for less than $15 an hour. You're working. And you get $1,400. You don't have any kids. So I don't want to hear about the child tax credit. I don't have kids. I'm an essential worker. I get $1,400 and that's it? And you're telling me I got rescued? And it's just, it's crazy. And I'm like, you're selling this as, okay, you help this group of people and this group of people all marginally, no universal programs, and then you're going to sell it as if you helped everyone. Well, when you means test like that, you leave a bunch of fucking people out. And then you expect that you're like marking those people down as, oh, I did good for them. They're going to vote for me in 2022. Well, in their book, they're still in debt. You're screaming on the news that this is something great, but their life isn't great. And it hasn't really been improved that much with this bill. And that's where they fall short, where they're like, oh, we just didn't understand that all these people, we don't understand how Trump won. These people didn't come vote for us. What do you mean? We helped them so much.
It's maddening. And on that same newscast where the person who isn't getting the child tax credit because they don't have kids. And by the way, even if you do have a kid, it's only 1 year. You're not, right. It's not like this isn't, we'll see if they make it permanent or not, but more than likely they won't. So, and again, yeah, they give money for COVID. So it's all these awful things. And Joe Biden could give Medicare for all with the swipe of a pen. And to hear liberals defend, no, well, shut up. Like, I don't, like, again, going back to the sports analogy, I had a guy wide open in the end zone, but it just didn't seem like the right time. So I threw it out of bounds. And people defend that shit. Everyone would show that clip and go, wide open. Are you an idiot? You're the dumbest quarterback we've ever seen. But thank you. Pack your shit. It would be pack it. Get
and
out.
Then that's what they're doing too. It's not even, this is the funny part. They're not even throwing it and trying to, like, even if it's a bad throw, you're out, right? Like, they're not even throwing it. They're just like taking the sack or throwing it out of bounds or running when there's someone wide open 50 yards down the field. They won't even try. They won't even throw it and see what happens. Like that's how it feels. They won't try anything. They're just going to go along with every single bill. They're going to put this bill in your face, say, oh, there's all these people struggling. You don't want to help them. They're going to do that every single bill. They did it with the CARES Act. They did it with the second stimulus bill that was passed. They did it with this bill. What on earth is telling you that they're not going to do that with the infrastructure reconciliation bill coming up?
Oh God. It'll be
the same thing.
It's maddening. And then again, no one look, and the Democrats will, and the liberals, like, they can't grasp the fact. They're like, well, we just got rid of Trump. Whoosh. And I'm like, Trump was dumb. And if he was smart, if he was literally like had a dictator's conniving brain,
for real,
he would have not left office and we would be in a full-on civil war and there'd be tanks in the street. Because I read history books, which most Americans, I don't know why they can't get them or they don't think it applies to America or
we can't conceive that could possibly, like, that's an actual possibility that could happen here. We can't conceive that.
It's nuts. But Americans are living in denial. Like, January 6th happened. Like, last summer happened. The cops are still shooting people. That's still happening. People are dying. People are living in tent cities. Like, and the tent cities are getting bigger. And okay, so the stimulus plan, you get $1,400. You get your unemployment extended. Okay, we just printed $1.9 trillion. So that's we're gonna ramp into hyperinflation. I mean, there's no economy, there's no country that has done this, printing this much money, that didn't eventually have a financial collapse.
Yeah, it's
not. And that's going to happen. When's that going to happen? Right around 2022, right around the midterms. Yep. Then what? And then the other thing they can't grasp is, imagine a charismatic Mike Pence. He's an ideologue. He has that evangelical thing that's a little crazy. And imagine, like,
massively insane.
That's who the Republicans are going to bring for 24.
Yeah.
Trump was just a circus act, and he didn't even want to win, and he did win. And the reason he won, and this is the thing the Democrats still refuse to acknowledge, there's a bunch of disenfranchised working class people, mainly white people, who are like, we've been screwed over. The hell with this. We're voting for this guy. Now you can say he ran on a populist platform. Everyone wants to forget that. Yes, it was xenophobic. There was racism in there. Absolutely. But he still ran populist. He did speeches in front of closed factories and said, I'm going to open this factory back up. Now you can say it's bullshit, he didn't do it, whatever, but that's what he ran on while Hillary was doing $10,000 a plate dinners. and they still don't want to get it. So
they never came to a reckoning on that.
No,
it was Russia. It was Comey. It was, everything else, literally anything else, but the platform that they ran on. And, I think about that because I talked to my teammates before the election in November. We were all just like in the hot tub after practice or something. And I genuinely wanted to know, like, what's everyone feeling? Like, what are people kind of planning on doing? Just probing them. And I basically came to a point where a lot of them were admitting that they were just like, a lot of them, their only singular motivation was the fact that Trump was there. And that for some of them, that wasn't even enough. They were like, they acknowledged it, but they were like, yeah, I still might just not vote. And then, there was a few that said they'd vote for Biden, but there was some that were just like, I'm just going to, I'm not going to vote. And one of them was like, just as a fuck you to the Dems, I might vote for Trump type thing. I don't think he actually did, but just like, that's the sentiment that people feel. And I remember, after the 2016 election, I think the New York Times did that report with those black business owners or in the barbershop or whatever.
Yeah.
And black barbers. And they were like, yeah, I just, I didn't go out and vote. Like we vote. Like they are forgetting that people have done this before, right? Especially black and brown people. We've done this before. We've played this game. People are tired of this shit. And they're tired of having to be like, I'm voting for another marginalized community or I'm voting for someone else. Like, what are you going to offer to me in my life so I can vote because I want my life to get better? You can't always rely on people just to come out and vote out of sympathy. Like, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, especially like from a more liberal ideology. But man, sometimes you just have stuff in your life that supersedes that. Like you got 2 jobs or you can't wait in a 5-6 hour line on election day, like all these type of things. And this is why they'll continue to lose, because you make these sweeping promises and then you fail to deliver time after time. And people are tired of this shit. They're just tired.
Yeah. And especially with the, the bend down the road, we got excited for this candidate or that candidate and nothing changed. We got really fired up, like for Obama or Clinton or whomever, and nothing really changed. And then all we hear is it's the other party's fault. And it's like,
right.
I can't. It's honestly back to the sports analogy. It'd be like, why do you guys keep losing? Well, the refs and the other team and the fans were mean. It's like, no, play ball. Like you guys must be dogging it in practice. What the coaches are idiots. Like, what is the problem? Like, why can these other teams win? Why do they keep winning?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and people get 1-2 years and they're gone, like sometimes it's just how it is. It's cutthroat. I wish, politics was more like that, because if you're not getting it done, get the fuck out. Like, what are you doing there? You're just literally stealing our money. You're stealing our money to also fund your healthcare facility, right? That they just doubled the budget for that. That was, before the Democrats were in, I think. Like, y'all are getting everything that we want just to not do shit for us. Like, get out.
Get out. You're bad. I mean, it's like, and again, it comes down to the economics of this. So, hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood. You are watching The Political Vigilante. I'm joined by Justin Jackson. Hit the like button, like, share, subscribe. We've still been demonetized by YouTube. Support us at everything that's scrolling below. And, for those of you who don't know, Justin plays with the LA Chargers of the NFL. How long have you been in the league?
This will be my 4th year.
4th year. Okay. And I want to talk about, because I think it's powerful what you're doing. And it's a thing that I've seen the corporate ruling class has done, because they've used sports are huge. It's obviously, better than anybody how it's big business. And again, you look to what athletes were doing in like the 60s and 70s. And then I think there's been a coordinated effort to go, let's make sure we don't get Ali and guys doing this at the Olympics again. Let's just keep everybody well paid and not. And I want to talk about what happened last summer, because the George Floyd protests had been going on for several weeks in America. They'd been very powerful. I was at several of them in LA. I was the one in Santa Monica that went off the rails. There was National Guard on the streets of Santa Monica where I lived for a week. Friends of mine, yep. Friends of mine got arrested in LA by LAPD. I mean, we all have all these stories, right? And it was, but powerful shit was starting to happen. I mean, people were like not having it. They were just like, no, we're not having this. And then, you know, because for a multitude of reasons, not the least of which was everybody was locked up inside. And unfortunately, we've seen other videos like this before, but you had to watch the George Floyd one because you couldn't go. Yeah. You couldn't say, "Well, I'm busy. I got to take my kids." No, you had to watch this.
There's nothing else. Yeah,
there's nothing else. You had to acknowledge this. And white America, middle class white America, had to go, "Damn, wait a minute," and they had to really confront this.
It felt almost like a Selma type thing, where it's like, at that time, obviously they were trying to get more people to see it just because of TV and all that type of stuff. But now it's like you had to watch that, and you had to come to the grips with the fact that this man was there for 9 minutes getting asphyxiated to death by a cop who was being videotaped in his face, was being videotaped, and still was like, yeah, that's cool. I'm just gonna put my knee on this guy's neck, fucking kill him. So you couldn't be like, oh, well, maybe he should have done this or maybe he should have done that, which is, what conservatives do, but liberals do it too. Liberals do it too. Okay, so you couldn't do that in this situation. But what do we get out of it? And I'm sure you want to talk more about that. But
yeah, I do want to talk more about that. So that had been going on, and people had been waking up and wholesale. And, I mean, I had heard from a friend of mine from high school that I played football with, a black dude, go, I've never seen so many white people at a Black Lives Matter protest in my life. And it was like, True. Good. Everyone's paying attention. Everyone has to. Like, white America had to really confront this and talk about it and go, and get uncomfortable and go, fuck, maybe I didn't do enough. Or we all had to confront that. Like I talked about earlier, I had to confront the fact when we were doing this thing with my teammates, or not just my teammates, but my classmates, and some of my teammates were on this Zoom call from the graduating class of my high school. I was like, can I look this guy in the eye and say I've done enough? No, I can't. So I had to get into this. So there was a collective shift starting to happen, it felt like to me. And then unfortunately, the horrific shooting of Jacob Blake, which was so awful, and sports had come back. So everything had been shut down, and we had the NBA bubble, we had the WNBA bubble, baseball had started. So there was some normalcy starting back. And I put, all the shutdown, and everyone was like, oh, we're on month 4, whatever, of the shutdown and the pandemic. And when the footage came out of Jacob Blake getting shot in the back 7 times, and the league said we're done, and they all stopped. It was like the NBA and the WNBA, I think, all like I can't remember the sequence of events, but they all said no. And then some of the baseball teams even said no. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is an important moment because it's a thing you've talked about as an athlete. You're still people, and sports unifies people. You go to a game, everyone's wearing the same jersey at the home team. And I guarantee you, some of them are Trump supporters. Some of them are Biden. Some of them were whatever. And it was powerful. And seeing like Doc Rivers break down crying, and seeing like a lot of athletes, like NFL, NBA players saying, this ain't right. And I forget which one. He's retired, but he's on ESPN a lot. I can't remember. Anyway, maybe he's the head of the Players Association. He started crying. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, this is powerful. And everything stopped because it was like, oh, we're back to normal watching sports. No, it's shut down. And I'm like, this is going to break through because some All Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter person is going to go, hey, one of my players on my team is really expressing to me in tears. He's not yelling at me, calling him racist. He's saying, come on, treat me like just stop killing us. Yeah. Like you're dead inside if that. I go, this is a powerful moment. And I said, this is an all the sports shows. And I was happy when sports came back. It was a break. I got to, I do this show, which is stressful sometimes, talking about everything. And I was like, I just want to watch the Cubs highlights. I want to watch, I'm a Sparks fan. Like the Bulls got no shot, but the Sparks, I was like, I was like, I'm a Sparks season ticket. I'm like, awesome. And when they stopped, like you couldn't get away. You can't even escape with sports. We have to talk about this. I'm like, this is a crucial moment. If they shut everything down, because if the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks went to the Milwaukee City Council, now I know Racine is south of there. For those who don't know, Racine is like 30, 40 minutes south of Milwaukee. But if the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks said, I want reforms right now, or I'm pulling my $1 billion franchise out of here, shit would have changed. And the only way the owner would have done that is if the players said, no, we're not playing. What the owners wanted is to just put Black Lives Matter on the floor and on some jerseys and go, oh, we'll let guys take knees now and we won't, ruin their careers like we did with Kaepernick. Right. Just let all this theater happen. And this is the moment. Real shit's going to change. And then Obama came in and said, go back to playing ball. He said that to LeBron. It's another thing. I voted for Obama twice. I phone banked for the guy in 2008, and then he let the bank steal my home. So that guy can go fuck himself. And if that's too brutal, then fuck him. Because he fucking is like a shitty coach. So,
but guys like you and situations like yours, it's just a number to them, Yeah. It's just a number. And half of childhood poverty means that the other half is still impoverished, but it's just numbers, and they like to use these numbers, right? And as far as the Obama thing, I mean,
how do you feel as a professional athlete? You were in the middle of this. So you guys were getting ready to talk. You were talking about maybe going back to camp. Where was the NFL?
No, so we were actually in camp. We were in camp, and short story, but we were going to have a scrimmage, and we were supposed to have a scrimmage the day after the Bucks, boycotted a playoff game, right? That's not just a game, it's a playoff game. So I was like, holy shit. I was the same as you. I was like, this is big, right? And we didn't have any plans to do anything with the Chargers, but long story short, I talked to some of my teammates, and then we had, a conversation in our locker room before the scrimmage. We were scrimmaging in our new stadium. We've never played there before. Big moments on NFL Network. It's live. All this stuff. And, I talked to a lot of my teammates, and a lot of us weren't feeling it. We were just like, this isn't right. Like, the Bucks have stopped playing. Like, we don't really feel comfortable going out there playing right now in the headspace we're in. We talked to our coach, Coach Lynn, and he was all about, we're going to go play, and, just being a, coach, like, all that outside stuff is out, we got to focus, that type of stuff. And we all came together. We said, no, we feel this, we understand this. And, him as a black man as well, I felt like he was getting tugged between, this was good for the Chargers, right? But also, this is a moment. And he actually ended up, like, you could tell, when we were talking in the locker room, that he was really like contemplating. He was like, I'm gonna have to agree with you guys. I don't think we should go out there and play today. And I was like, wow, like this is, and it happened across the league. There was other teams that didn't play. Instead, we went out there on live TV and we talked about what was going on and all this shit. Like, it was huge instead of playing. And I'm like, a lot of people who were just like you said yourself, want a break from everything. They're going to watch the scrimmage, but they can't. We're not going to let them just ignore what's going on, right? And so that's why I felt like it was powerful for us. It was powerful for everyone. And when you disrupt capital like that, like you said, that's really when things start changing. And you had Obama come in and do what Obama does. And what does he do? He quells the masses. Everyone relax. Okay, Trump will be out here soon. Don't worry about it. We got Biden coming in. Don't worry about what he's done. He's going to make sure everything's... the
94 crime bill. He's coming in.
He's coming in. The guy who eulogized the segregationist. That guy, he's coming in. Don't worry about it. He was my VP. He's all good. He's all good. And just like that, quell the masses. Masses vote Joe Biden. And now you get to the place where you're at right now. And I think because we covered like politics daily so much, we forget to like think back to that time and like how people were feeling in the moment and all these things. And because of stuff like that is why it was so hard to even utter a critical word of, Joe Biden. And we have stuff like Andrew Cuomo's scandal going on right now, and you couldn't utter a word about Tara Reid. You know, it's just that's how it was so controlled. You know, the media has, you know, everyone so, you know, in lockstep and controlled and brainwashed. And at that time, it was like, you can't say anything bad about Biden. You can't say anything bad about Biden because Trump, he's worse, and we got to get this guy in. And that message came from the top through that strike. You know, strike was done in a day. It's just another thing, you know, everyone claps and applauds and moves on.
How did you feel as a professional athlete who, now you guys weren't in season yet, obviously, but you were in camp and you didn't have that scrimmage and you talked on the NFL Network. I mean, how did you feel as a guy that's a big, you know, lefty, and you're outward about it, you know, you're open, you know, and I was just like, oh man, it's another, just like, and people kept, so now, and that's like, when I hear the now's not the time, you know, like when they were saying that about with forced vote, now's not, I go, when's the time? When we have a worse pandemic? Like, and in terms of like the Jacob Blake protest, I'm like, when's it, when the cops are killing more unarmed Black people? Like when will the time be? Like, so how did you feel during that whole, I mean, cause again, you understand it's a bit, you're in a business. It's like I'm in show business. It is pro. You've got this big $1 billion stadium or whatever. You've got these big sponsors. You got the NFL networks, all this it's entertainment. Yeah. And what happened, like the thing I always bring up when people are like, oh, now's not the time. I go, well, look how money talks. Look what happened with the Washington Redskins. Everybody pressured FedEx. And then, the name changed overnight. Snyder has been 15 years. I ain't changing the name. And then, well, when $500 million gets pulled off the table,
line.
I'll change it.
It's just a name. Who cares? Like, you know, at that point. But that's how they think, you know. That's it. You know, sports, you know, we live in the United Corporations of America, right? And sports is just another massive, huge American market and business, and their corporation. So at the end of the day, you have to make it untenable for them to continue in the fashion that they are, for them to change. And like you said, that's what happened with the Redskins situation. It was at that point when that money was on the line for him and his mind and his cost benefit analysis, it was untenable to keep it like that. Even if it's going to take, you know, a year or two of branding change or whatever. That ain't worth $500 million. But, you know, that's what it comes down to, is money. So that's, I mean, at least on my show, that's kind of what I'm trying to get people to understand. You know, I think people get that, but on a deeper level, we need to kind of come to terms with, it's not just like Republicans or Democrats. One, they're bought and owned by the same people. Yeah. So once you understand that, you can extrapolate from there. Why they make the decisions that they make. And people like Obama and Harris, they're, you know, yes, they're Black. I understand that. I love representation as well. As growing up a Black kid in a freaking mostly white suburb, I get it. Okay, I understand. I'm with you. I sympathize with you. But we need to get to a point where that's not enough. That's just not enough. And the Democrats, of course, want to co-opt every single first to make sure that it's never enough, and you need to just keep pushing more representation, even if that doesn't mean, you know, representative policies. Just, you know. Yeah,
it's. I mean, because I've said this on the show. I go, well, Gina Haspel was the first head of the CIA, and she's pro-torture, first female. Right. I'm like so we got to get rid of these first, because it's we're not changing the structure. It's like we didn't end slavery by going, you know what we're going to do? We're going to let Black people own slaves too. That'll fix it. It was like, no, slavery's immoral. We're shutting it down. Like, so I know you got to go here, but in the last couple of minutes, how do you, I mean, it feels like, as a true like lefty progressive, it feels like there's not a lot of wins. I'm not seeing a lot of wins.
No, there's not. And it's tough, but I'm with you.
And so where do you see this as a professional athlete that's using his platform in a very positive way? Where do you see just any real change happening, and also not just within just like us lefties of all backgrounds, but also specifically with the professional athlete. Now that Kaepernick is now,
right.
You know, that's a big change, that like he was shunned and now you can take a knee. I mean, it's
yeah.
Where do you see that, not just as the left, but also as a professional athlete that's speaking out? Where do you see this going, or what are you hopeful for?
Yeah. I'll start with the second question first. Just as far as like you said, I think it's good. It's genuinely good that society made it untenable for the NFL to be able to do something so blatant, you know, as what they did with Kaepernick. I'm glad that society pushed, you know, the NFL as a league to that point, you know, and I mean, that pretty much is what happens with most corporations, right? You have to think of the NFL as a corporation. That's what it is. So I'm glad that we're in that situation. You know, I'm glad that, like you said, during the George Floyd protests and stuff like that, you saw the, you know, big NFL players, that's important when you have those big players like the Patrick Mahomes, Michael Thomas, all these people really on your side. You can push forward things more, you know, aggressively because you know you have the backing of those bigger players who won't face as many consequences in their strength and numbers. So I'm glad on that front. And it is genuinely good that, you know, the NFL does have things, you know, funds that do, you know, give money out to causes that actually make a difference. Like just like the same thing with AOC, you know, doing the fundraiser, of course that makes a difference, but that's, you know, that's base level, right? That's what we expect. You know, we expect that those kind of things, like you need to go, that's the bare minimum standard. We need more, right? And so that's kind of what I'm pushing for. I know a lot of other guys are pushing, especially when it comes to like having black head coaches and all these things. Like there's a big push, you know, and the NFL is probably the most conservative league because you think of the fans, right? Probably the most conservative fans. So as opposed to an NBA, which is a lot more progressive, to be frank. So I'm hoping, you know, I'm going to keep speaking out. I know more people are starting to speak out more, and I'm hoping that, you know, I don't think it's I don't think it's going to come from the athletes. I just don't, to be honest. I think it's going to come from like labor unions and, you know, just groups of working class people, you know, striking, you know, actually disrupting stuff. And even like I have to almost qualify everything because like that's what we saw with BLM protests, and then you get Joe Biden who says he wants to fund the police more. So that's what's tough about being a real lefty, right? It's always like something like, well, yeah, that's good, but you know this happened, and so maybe it's not as good as you think. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to. Sometimes I try and focus on more local stuff. Like, you know, you're in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, CalCare, which is being pushed. Now, we saw it get killed a few years ago, so that's another qualifier. Who knows if it'll actually get through. But there's a big push going on for that. Whole Washington, for single payer in the state of Washington. Same thing in New York. You know, Illinois, I want to cover this, just passed a kind of a sweeping criminal justice reform bill that ends cash bail, pretty much ends qualified immunity. It's actually really good. I was surprised that Pritzker signed it. I'm like, okay. I was surprised by that. So there's you know more wins I think locally going on, maybe at a state level. So I try and cover stuff like that. Public power in New York, but you know it's tough at a national level. Things are just so bought and corrupted. It's just, and then you have, you know, the one group of people who ostensibly agree with us don't seem to have any type of strategy to, you know, enact immediate change. You know, they kind of seem like they're in the 5, 10, 15 year look down the road.
It's always
type of mindset, which is gonna get you where, you know, you end up being Nancy Pelosi. Great, you're in a position of power. In 1995, you're saying you want to force a vote on single payer. In 2020, you're denying it. Like, but that's a real, you know, that's a real thing that happens. So I don't like, you know, to be too grim, but I try and be honest about the situation we're in, and it is a precarious one at that.
Yeah. I agree. I think, and I say this a lot on my show about like get local, because that's where real, I mean, on an electoral political level, local is where you actually have a shot at making some stuff happen and putting some
real
bills
change,
back. The federal level is, I'm not saying it's impossible, but man, you just see what happens. I mean, it was 14 months from the time AOC was sworn in to when she started saying Mama Bear. I mean, it was 14 months. I mean, the first couple months she's calling out Pelosi and we're going to fight and the Democrats and boom, boom, boom. And now it's Mama Bear and now's not the time. And it's a performative and condescending to, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is on the there is a lot of victories on the local level. I just did a video on the AFL-CIO got voted down a right to work bill in Montana. They're trying to make Montana a right to work state, which kills unions.
Yeah,
That's a red state, man. And the unions came in and said, nope. And they shut it down. And a bunch of AFL-CIO workers showed up at the state capitol and said, nope. And a Republican state legislator, Republican governor all went, oh, okay. So
that's what happens with movements of people. Actually, like, nah, like we're here. We're like, we're in your face and we're demanding something. The squad could call for that, could call for those type of, they've got a lot of followers, people that listen to them.
They could do
I'm down. I'm ready. Yes, we can organize grassroots wise. It takes a lot of energy and effort. People do it all the time, but they can organize very quickly with minimal effort.
With a tweet. I mean,
with one, with their
if I
fingers.
had 12 million Twitter followers, dude, I would be organizing the shit out of stuff. I mean, it would be unreal what I would do. I don't even come close to that. I got like 40,000 or something.
Yeah.
Come on.
So.
All right, Justin. Well, I know you got to go. Where can people follow you online and listen to your show and all that?
Yeah. So the takeover on YouTube, I upload pretty much every day. I'll be doing a live stream at 4:30 if y'all want to come over after Graham's show finishes. And then on Twitter, I'm at J_manprime21. And on Instagram, I'm JJPrime21. So I'm mostly political stuff on Twitter, though. So shoot me a follow there. And appreciate you having me on, Graham.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Please hit the like button, the subscribe button. Go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood and rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, where you can support the show. Also, I have a Bitcoin wallet, a Bitcoin Cash wallet, and an Ethereum wallet in the show notes. We're taking cryptocurrency. I have a Coinbase affiliation link. We're going to be getting on some other exchanges. So that's how you support the show. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. YouTube is unsubscribing us at an alarming rate. I have a PayPal button at grahamelwood.com. I even have a Venmo at Graham-Elwood. There's a lot of ways to support our show. We are getting crushed by YouTube. We've dipped under 73,000 subscribers because of YouTube. Thanks for supporting what we do.